What's up, investors? It's the Russians yet. There is a strange silence spreading across Russia right now. Not the calm type, not the peaceful type. It is the silence that comes before something breaks. Something before the silence before the storm. The silence people create when they understand something is wrong, but they do not know yet how to act. You can feel it in the conversations on buses, in hallway in factories, in lights at the grocery stores, in Telegram channels that used to be full of jokes and just now feel cautious. Everyone senses it. The war that was supposed to be quick, victorious and heroic has turned into something so rotten, endless, absurd, with absolutely no end sight, unless something changes. Even those who used to cheer for it now stare at the floor when somebody brings it up, because deep down they know, whatever is happening, it is no longer about victory. It is about survival, and not the one on the battlefield, but survival back at home. And even more important than that, the cracks are appearing inside the army itself. Soldiers who once believed the promises are now questioning why they're being thrown into these meat assaults for completely meaningless pieces of land that will be lost again tomorrow. Losses are higher than during the most intense battles, but the map changes are invisible unless you zoom in all the way. Commanders lie about casualties, generals falsify reports to please the Kremlin, oligarchs use the war to make billions. The front has become a conveyor belt of broken bodies and broken illusions. And when illusions break, regimes fall. So today, let's talk about how Russia is breaking from the inside, how morale collapses, how corruption devours the system from within, how the rebellion of Wagner was not just a one-time thing, but a warning sign of something bigger yet to come, something inevitable. Because whether Putin likes it or not, once fear stops working, and it will, the fortress will crumble. Russia's government has always relied on creating illusions. Illusion of eternal stability, illusion of unity, illusion of strength. But strength is not measured in parades and big speeches. It is measured the moment something goes wrong. And when things do go wrong, most famously when Wagner rolled their tanks towards Moscow, we saw what the system actually is. It's just empty hallways, abandoned offices, and elites running way faster than they could pack their suitcases, just whatever, like straight from the Kremlin to their private jet. The most powerful people in the country disappeared, just vanished. They did not defend the government. They did not rally the army. They did not calm the population. They did what scared people do. They just hid. Meanwhile, ordinary Russians watched Yevgeny Prigozhin march across the country like it was nothing. Police did not stop him. National Guard did not stop him. Local governors pretended they were on convenient coffee break. Nobody moved. Except, of course, Kadyrov's Akhmat forces, TikTok battalion. But unlucky for them, they got stuck in a very convenient traffic. How unfortunate. But whatever. And that is the real sign of collapse. Not protests, not riots. The real sign of collapse is when institutions refuse to act. When people whose job is to defend the system look the other way. Well, because they do not believe in the system anymore, simply saying. People waved at Wagner like they were welcoming liberators. They filled Instagram stories, TikToks, smiling and laughing. The story that the war was about defending Russia from NATO fell apart in real time, in these broadcast live streams, literally, by regular people. If a few thousand mercenaries could almost take Moscow in 24 hours, how exactly was NATO supposed to be the main threat? And the most important thing, people saw it. They will not forget it. And Putin knows that they will not. This was the biggest threat to the regime of Putin in 2 decades, and it was almost destroyed in less than 1 day. Now ask yourself, is Putin really that powerful? Or is it just the projection of strength with nothing behind it? The rebellion ended in nothing, unfortunately. The war continues, and it all seemed relatively stable at first. Soldiers were dying, but the advances were made and key cities captured. Now, 2 years later, only one of these 3 things remains the same. Soldiers keep dying. Sometimes by thousands in a single day. And if anyone else, it would be those along the front lines who will experience first-hand how worthless and meaningless this war has become. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. The deepest cracks are forming not in Moscow palaces, but in trenches. The truth is, the soldiers are tired. Not physically, even though that too, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They were told they were defending Russian people. They were told they were liberating territory. They were even told they would become heroes as soon as they come back. But what they see instead is a cycle of meaningless assaults. A village taken, then lost, then taken again, then lost again. Thousands die for positions that do not even matter. A hill, a tree line, a ruined pig farm. Nobody can even explain why. Imagine standing in freezing mud for 14 hours waiting to attack a trench you already attacked 3 times yesterday, where everyone who attacked before you died already. And your commander just shouts, "Just go. Orders from above. Take it." That's not war, that is ritual sacrifice. The soldiers know this. They talk about it. They send voice messages home. They write to their wives and girlfriends. They post videos on Instagram. Or Telegram at least. The system tries to delete these messages, censor them, arrest those who speak, but you cannot censor despair. You simply cannot jail exhaustion. You cannot shoot doubt. Those lucky who come back home from war are greeted with apathy and dislike. Not even close to be the heroes they were promised to become. Employers avoid hiring special military operation veterans. Friends disappear when all you talk about is the war and how you kill people. And your family no longer recognizes you. Confusion is replaced by hatred. Hatred that you are the one willingly sacrificed your life, while all these pink-cheeked Muscovites were eating in fancy restaurants, pretending the war never affected them. Soldiers become violent and completely abandoned by the society. And then, the most dangerous thing happens. These soldiers lose fear. When you have seen death every day, when you have lost everyone around you, what else can the government take from you? Your life? Well, you don't even own your life anymore. It belongs to the commanders who send you forward to die for statistics on, spreadsheet, for some bureaucrat to report to higher authorities. The most dangerous person for Putin is a person who has nothing to lose. And once a soldier stops fearing the Kremlin is in danger. Multiply this by thousands returning from the front lines, and you have a recipe for disaster. Yet, there are people who profit from the war. Every single confrontation in the past had people like this, of course, on both sides, but Russia put it on a whole new level. The redistribution of wealth reaches absurd, 1,000,000-to-1 proportions. For people like this, it is best to keep the hostilities going for as long as possible. But the longer fighting continues, the worse the consequences become. Let's talk about them in our next chapter. The war no longer has a strategic goal. Nobody even pretends anymore that this is about protecting Russia or fighting NATO. Maybe just Putin, but he has no other choice, right? What, is he going to say that we need to keep fighting and kill thousands so we can finally capture the town of Bila Tserkva? Of course not. The war continues simply because too many people are making too much money from it. Each missile fired is a contract, each drone is a budget line, each soldier killed is a salary that never needs to be paid out. This is not war, this is already an entire industry. Factories that never worked now operate 24/7 producing ammunition, not because Russia needs to win, but because cronies need to get paid to keep them loyal. Generals scramble to prolong the war because peace would expose how useless they truly are. Oligarchs buy villas in Dubai or any other unsanctioned countries with money earned on the bones of 20-year-olds from Ryazan and Murtia. Meanwhile, frontline units beg for basic supplies, tourniquets, helmets, winter boots, socks, underwear. The corruption is so deep that commanders forge casualty records just to avoid answering uncomfortable questions. Soldiers, for example, who died months ago are still listed as active. Families are denied compensation because, your son is technically alive, or because he died on the wrong side of the line of contact. Nobody bothers to hide the lies anymore. The system has stopped pretending completely. This is why the war cannot end so simply. Peace means accountability. Peace means people will start asking questions. Peace means that the truth comes out. So they keep feeding the frontline whatever they can find. Prisoners, alcoholics, students, migrants, men grabbed at bus stops against their will. And they tell them all exactly one single phrase. You are defending the motherland. But the only thing being defended is somebody else's bank account. Imagine if soldiers are told just that. Now you see why the Russian propaganda has to make an entire celebration of even the smallest events and map changes. The most dangerous moment for an authoritarian regime is not when people are silent. It is when they begin to talk quietly. When complaints become whispers, when whispers become jokes, and then jokes become anger, and when anger becomes, finally, action. Russia is entering the early stages of that phase. After all, the war cannot continue indefinitely. Sooner or later it will end. Taxi drivers talk about the war when the car windows are closed. Mothers of dead soldiers gather in kitchens, and kitchen conversations are where the real truth is spoken, and where every Russian revolution has ever started. Students share VPNs, prisoners sent to the front refuse orders and run, factory workers demand payback, truck drivers block the entire highways. Entire units of soldiers even refuse to return to the battlefield, and every month these incidents multiply, like bacteria, like mold, like rust, like cracks in the glass. And here is the thing, Putin cannot stop all of them. He cannot jail everyone. He cannot silence every voice. He cannot control every conversation. He cannot stop the knowledge that Wagner almost reached Moscow, because that happened. Putin fled, system broke, and the fear disappeared. It's already too late. Russians do not need millions to revolt. They just need one moment, one spark, one trigger. It doesn't even matter where it comes from. A military defeat, economic collapse, another rebellion, a leaked recording from Kremlin, a strike, scandal, or just simply by an accident, something completely unpredictable. The war exposed everything Putin wanted to hide. The inequality, the greed, the incompetence, the exhaustion, the indifference of the elites, the helplessness of the commanders, the lack of purpose, the absence of future. The regime is not a fortress, it is a glass cage. It looks solid kinda, but one hit can shatter it. Nobody knows when the hit will come, but everyone feels it is coming. Russians do not need courage to act, they only need to remember what they already saw with their own eyes. Once people stop believing that the leader is strong, the leader is finished. And by no means Putin is as strong as he wants people to see it. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support our work and help us stay independent, there are links down below. For example, PayPal donations, Patreon memberships. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims are resolve they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.